I remember.
Okay, 7 o'clock, I'd like to call to order the Morgan Grove Public Library Board of Trustees meeting on October 17th. If we could stand and say the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, if you could call the roll.
Trustee Peters?
Here.
Trustee Novick?
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Here.
Trustee Goldstein?
Here.
Trustee Kellerman?
Here.
Trustee Burke? Here. And Trustee Albers?
Here. Approval of the minutes of the board meeting of September 19, 2013. Can I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
And a second?
I'll second.
I had a question. Is that really the minutes was related to? When the public makes comments or questions, how is this ultimately handled if at all? Is it a logical question? Shall I try again?
They record the comments were made on the minutes,
Mhm.
and that's the extent of it.
Okay, so there's not necessarily any follow through with it.
It's
I
public
have that.
comments, it's not a dialogue with the board.
Okay.
So if there is any dialogue, they could send in a letter and ask for a response,
Gotcha,
and we would respond.
gotcha. Just curiosity.
Yeah. All right. Any further questions or comments?
It didn't be.
If none, Paul, could you call the roll?
Okay. All in favor? Why don't you do it?
Do a roll call.
Oh,
vote.
don't do that. Okay. Trustee Burke? Yes. Trustee Kellerman?
Yes.
Trustee Goldstein?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Yeah.
Trustee Novick?
Yes.
Trustee Peters? And Trustee Albers?
Yes.
Yes, that's approved.
Okay, approval of the minutes of the executive session on August 15, 2013. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
And a second?
I will.
Any questions or comments? If none, Paul, could you call the roll? Right.
Just a second. Yeah. Let's see here somewhere.
The minutes?
Yeah, the executive session.
Here you go. I got it.
Thanks.
Okay. Trustee Kellerman?
Here.
Trustee Goldstein?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Yeah.
Trustee Novick?
Yes.
Trustee Peters?
Abstain, I haven't finished.
Trustee Byrd, yes. Trustee Albers?
Yes.
Yes, 6. 0 and 1 abstain.
All right, public comments on agenda items only. None this evening. There is no president's report. Can we have the treasurer's report?
Everybody received a copy of the cash statement. We've received just about everything that, well, we've received virtually everything that we're going to be receiving from the state this year. And there were any outliers that were discussed at the meeting. The $300,000 worth of family bonds became mature and were rolled over. If you count the 200 from this month and then the 100 from last month, that was not, the disposition wasn't finalized by last meeting. So that's all been rolled over. Does anybody have any questions about you will see 2 debits made to the special reserve account, and they were for ballot holders for moving the children's department and then putting it back and I would say for the carpeting, leaving the balance on the special reserve of about $20,000. Does anybody else have any questions?
Couple of questions on
Sure.
the registry.
Mhm.
They always,
Fascinate you?
they fascinate me. I said, we paid twice last month. It's not certainly legitimate, but what is Vantage Point transfer agents?
Those are employee benefits.
Oh, okay, that's an employee benefit, all right.
And that's just money we transfer to them, there's no cost, the library has no cost, we're just transferring that
Oh,
money.
okay, just curious. That's- Okay.
I have a question. I know Baker and Taylor supplies a lot of the books and audio visuals and stuff. I added up all the Baker and Taylor things in this form. It doesn't add up to same as what's in our expense.
Right, that's because the Baker and Taylor comes out of different accounts. There's Baker and Taylor 1, 2, 3, so some go out
That's
of
why I was
children,
wondering
some
what-
go out of, right,
Okay.
so they're up, we have up 7 altogether. Places that Baker and Taylor can be credited against. And so that's why I don't.
So if I were to add up the 7, I would, well, it would come out higher because some things are coming in from other places to those.
We also have a number of other vendors
A
that
whole
we
lot
use
of other-
for-
That's what I was,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
trying to
so
say.
there's,
Yeah.
without going through matching up all the invoices
Yeah,
and stuff.
No, I didn't want to do that, I was
If
just
you wanna come in
wondering.
sometime and do, we'll be
No,
happy to
no,
do it.
that's perfectly okay, you don't want me to do that, actually. I just was wondering, because I know they're huge, and there's, I hear like 7, 8 bills.
Yeah, and in fact, there's more bills than it looks like there because some of
You
those
combine
bills
them.
combine several invoices.
That's what I figured. Okay,
Yeah.
I have two other things like that. Gate improvers. It's only $323.
Are those the
It's
supplies for
supplies.
Claude?
It's, their library supplies, I have to look at the actual invoice to know what they were, the book covers, it could
Could
be
be-
paper
could
clips,
be a number
pens,
of-
it could be, it's
Yeah.
mostly library supplies.
And the Management Association of Illinois.
Those were the.
That was the $1,800 for the anti-bullying speech during the in-service,
For
the
staff
staff
and
in-service
training.
day. Was that switched over to the other?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Was it worth $1,800
I wasn't there.
for those of you?
I believe the staff thought it was well worth it. That was the feedback that we had received.
If there aren't any other questions, I'll ask that we put this on.
I have a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Thank you.
I'll
And a
second.
second from Trustee Berg.
Okay. Trustee Peters?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Nolan?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Yes.
Trustee Goldstein?
Yes.
Trustee Delmeck?
Yes.
Trustee Berg? Yes. And Trustee Andrews?
Yes, accepted, thank you. Committee reports, Finance, Building and Grounds and Policy, I don't think got together this month.
Well, finance gets together every month.
Every
I
month.
folded that into the.
It's in here already,
Right.
thank you. Staff reports from our director.
Not much that I want to add to my written report. Just point out to the board, if you haven't noticed, we are doing some rearranging of shelving and some furniture on the first floor. So we have gotten some new shelving that we moved the new books over to, so we can create an AV area where the books and the DVDs used to be. Created a little bit more seating space in the center of that aisle area, and I was very happy to see that a number of people have already been sitting in that area. So obviously, seating space in those areas was at a premium, so we will continue to make some tweaking. We will continue to tweak some things down on the first floor, as we try to update the area to better serve the needs of the residents. Other than that, there's nothing much to add. Beyond my written report, I've got the things that we're gonna cover later on with per capita and budget preparation.
All right, thank you. Anything from corporate counsel?
I do not have a report.
Nothing. All right, let's go on to unfinished business. Any updates on our bylaw reviews?
Yes. First, I want to say I want to thank Carlotta and Kathy, because it's been tedious, a lot more so than I think any of us expected. We've been going very carefully through the bylaws, page by page, word by word. Comma by comma. Yeah, a lot of grammar, a lot of punctuation problems. We've also been taking the suggestions that were brought to the committee and going through those. And I think you're gonna be either disgusted with us or amazed or something. However, we're not ready. And there's a few things that we do need, though, to discuss at this point. One, we feel very strongly that before we even present it to the board, because there are questions of legality of on certain issues, that it should be reviewed by a lawyer, and there has been some request for a library lawyer who's familiar with library law. I'm just repeating, what the committee has asked me to bring forth. And we'd like some guidance on that and approval, because there's obviously an expense involved. So I'll stop there and continue with the next subject after you have discussion, if that's okay.
Well,
Excuse me,
continue.
why do you feel necessary to get a library lawyer? When it's
Um,
a question of the law.
I'm not an expert by any means at answering this, but there was a very strong feeling that because this is our bylaws and this is what we're supposed to be behaving by and following, we just want to make sure there's no mistakes. And I think that's the best answer I can give.
Can you give an example of why is there a particular thing?
Don't have it with me. Can you?
Yeah,
there
we
were-
want to make sure that everything that's in the bylaws, that there's no conflict with current Illinois law. Because if there is, of course, Illinois law trumps it, but we want to make sure that from what we give to the board as a draft is something that's been fully vetted, and that we can confidently come to the board and say, we know that legally we're in the right with this, and that we're not proposing anything or integrating anything that shouldn't be here. And there are lawyers that specialize in that. And we were given a recommendation by Dominican University
Who they use in
of who they use
school.
for their, and they were very positive on very.
They gave us two names.
Yeah,
Of lawyers within one company that they felt were very adequate.
Were you doing a trustee program when you were there?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It just came up that maybe we should have a library lawyer because of what I said, just to make sure that everything is really right down the line what the state laws cover. And thought about sources, and it occurred to us, let's go to the library school, because I'm sure they have a lawyer on staff. The other thought we had was calling some of these professional organizations. I'm very bad at names, but the
the
ones,
ILA, yeah.
those guys, these guys.
Right.
I'm hopeless, Art. There's no saving me.
You're supposed to do that, you're doing your job.
There's no saving me. I'm totally hopeless when it comes to remembering things. There's some of the issues, we just don't even know the right language to use it every so often. And we just thought, to make it right, because bylaws are messier than you realize on quick reading, is what we're finding.
Would the Illinois Library Association provide the service?
It's
for
possible.
editing that or no?
No,
No.
But But they can give us some reference.
We have, yeah. we've
We
been
could
getting-
get other references and do a little bit of a cost analysis, you know, if we could get 2 or 3 references, we'll find out what the hourly rate is, and that's
And choose the
yeah.
most reasonable.
To go back in history, we had our lawyer that we were using prior to Frank was a specialist,
Okay,
and you might refer back to our records.
Well, do you remember his name,
I
Art?
don't recall his
Ritzman.
name,
It was Ritzman, I believe.
could very well be.
Yes.
what we would just do is call on the phone and see if we could get hourly rates, not do a
Yeah,
real
well,
fancy.
we have.
Yeah, no, that's fine, I mean, if the board approves. If they wanna put a dollar limit on, or say no to it altogether, it's, you know, it's up to the board.
We expect to have a workable draft in,
Our
By
next
our next
meeting is on
meeting.
the 30th, and we anticipate having, it'll be done at that point.
we've met
We've
3
gone
times
through-
already, yeah.
We've gone through all of it, we've just, every week, every meeting, we've come back and gone back to the things that we've done the previous time, and still find things that need tweaking, so we're gonna have one final meeting
Could you give one example
of,
of a questionable,
Yes, Mr. Elbers suggested that something be included, that if somebody misses a board meeting, misses 4 board meetings without a valid excuse, that they be asked to resign from the board. I have concerns, since this is an elected position, that that would not be a legal thing to do.
It's actually not,
It's
the
one
one
year.
is
Yeah.
1 year of unexcused sentences.
So it's for these kinds of things. The other thing is all the things that are in there about finances, now that we have PMA, how much of that is redundant, how much of that don't we need, how much redundancy do we need between what's in the law and what's in the bylaws, or how much, you know, it's very, the bylaws as they're written right now are kind of scattershot. Some of it incorporates the Illinois law and some of it doesn't, and how much of it's necessary.
I'm not,
We don't
there
know.
were a couple things that I haven't typed.
Well, why don't
out
you
yet.
find out how much these lawyers cost, and then
Well,
we
I
can,
can suggest, I think
Yeah.
that if somebody's gonna be retained on the phone, it should be
the
the director.
director, yeah. So,
Okay.
Well, but this is for the board, Frank.
however,
No,
I'm just saying- I'm just saying
however
that-
on this.
I'm just saying that my point is that I don't think that the individual board members should be contacting the lawyer. I think the director should be contacting the lawyer that the board members have suggested to the director, and that you go through that channel. And the reason,
Why wouldn't the committee, the head of the committee be, because the director isn't on this committee at all?
could the
Well,
director, because you're talking about retaining someone to work for the library.
The board.
And one, right, and in one, you get into the same situation where one board member doesn't retain the attorney. The director would be the appropriate person.
I would be a lot more comfortable with that, that's where I've been headed.
I concur.
I mean, I'm just suggesting that I would see that as the appropriate course of conduct. I mean, whatever the board wants to do, they can do. But, I'm just suggesting.
I really don't understand it, though. I don't understand why the board would want to give up their autonomy in picking their own counsel for their own bylaws. I can see asking the director
No.
to do the research.
No, we don't hire
no,
anybody.
we don't hire anybody.
Sure we do, that's in the bylaws, we hire counsel.
Through
That's part of
Board
the,
hires.
So you hire.
The board, right,
no,
the
you
board
hire your-
hires counsel.
you do, Absolutely, you hire your corporate counsel.
Right.
You do.
yeah.
I was just thinking, since I'm getting the sense that this is a special project that you would be bringing this person on to do, if you chose.
Just for the scope of this project.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, it's something that's could probably take all of an hour of his time,
Really.
you know, the way I see it. Or
Well,
lawyers can't do
Sorry.
it, lawyers can't do it in an
Doesn't
hour.
work that way.
It takes me an hour to do it, it takes them 7, is that it?
That's right.
They're hopeless.
Yeah.
I knew there was a reason I didn't want one.
You can just stop them and say
Uh,
1 billable hour for that.
Might work.
5 hours.
Would it be
There's a minimum.
more logical that the president be the one to contact?
I would defer that immediately to the director.
I would
So-
go back to the bylaws and point to the fact that the bylaws say that the board hires the council and not the director.
Corporate counsel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
See, what I was gonna, I mean, I wouldn't hire until I get approval, obviously.
You can't.
I can't, and I wouldn't, I mean, I would never even think that way.
Right. Could either you or Mark get in touch with them and then bring it to the full board for at the next meeting? And we vote on it then?
Want me to do
So
it?
it would just be
I
informational.
could do it, it's not bad, I could do it. Once, you know, I'll take the name of the lawyer that was here before. I will contact,
And he's well aware of us.
that's fine, and they may all come in within $5 of each other
Right.
too.
Well,
Well, yeah,
And the
I mean,
ones that
per
mitigate.
hour rate, I
Right.
mean, or an estimate of how long it would, I mean, what the,
They can't tell you that.
of course
No.
not. They're lawyers.
Well, no, they have to go over it.
Yeah.
There.
But it
No,
is
we
whatever it is.
I mean, all we can really get is an hourly rate, if that's be the case.
First, we get the hourly rate, and
I think you should be.
I mean, I don't wanna drag this out for the next 12 months.
I
Right.
think you should be looking for an hourly rate, but you should also be looking for a quote. I mean,
Yes.
you know, it's a specific project
Right.
that you're requesting to be done.
is it just for consultation, or you want them to do the draft?
No,
No.
the draft is
We've done the draft.
90% done.
It's just to
Well, it's gonna
proofread,
change
to
the-
proofread
Okay,
it.
so it's a consultation.
You
It's
can't
a
change the bylaws without
Okay.
approval of the board.
True.
We're bringing the draft to the board once we're done going through it. tittle
The
by
whole
tittle.
idea was to avoid a legal we don't wanna have the board approve it and then find out something really is, as I would put it, kosher.
Right.
But I'm sure that's not the word that's used in a library board.
Why not?
I don't know. It's in my language.
So you're gonna contact the lawyer, get an hourly rate to bid out this project?
And I'm being told also a quote, and that makes it a little more complicated.
Why don't we have the director contact the attorney, because she represents the library?
I mean, I'm
Because this is a
comfortable
board
with it.
issue and not a
Yes, it's-
library issue, Art. This is a board.
Library
It's
function,
a
the
library
bylaws.
It
right.
is a library issue.
It's still a library.
Everybody operates per the bylaw.
It's a library issue, however, there's a committee that's doing these, so it's probably the committee who's doing these,
Yeah.
who has the right to contact the lawyer.
Yes.
He was set up by.
The board, so, you know,
So contact the lawyer, get a cost, get a quote, let us know.
is that a general agreement then? Okay.
You should tell them what you want, and they can tell you how to best, you know, they might say, oh, well, we charge X number of dollars to do something like
Right.
that, or.
For review of bylaws, all we're
Right.
looking for is a quote for bylaw review.
No, I
The attorney
understand.
that we use is well aware of the former bylaw.
Right,
So.
I mean, there is
we save a lot of-
advantages, right,
Yes.
and that could be mentioned in that first, you know, why not
Just
give
for
us-
expediency, you might want to earmark the 3 or 4 or 5 areas. That's a
I,
concern.
we already
we are
have it.
actually,
Yeah, that's
the
bold
way I've been
green.
typing it, it's in, anything that we're really questioning is in green right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
So,
you know,
Yeah.
if he does
Yeah.
charge hourly, it might speed up the process.
Yeah.
right, because really, there's only a couple things when it
Right.
come right down to it. And we basically already have eliminated the one that you mentioned.
Right.
The other ones came up yesterday, and I don't have it with me. I can't read my scribble at this point, it takes a while.
Did you happen to read the magazine that was included in our packet? package.
No, I haven't had 10
Well, there's
seconds.
loads in there about trustee responsibilities.
Mhm.
Oh, goody.
And it's really good.
Page
Oh,
8,
goody.
9, and 10.
No, seriously, I think you'll
No, I will.
appreciate
I
that.
will. The other question that we had discussed the possibility, one of the bylaws talks about the director, her role, and evaluation, and we had discussed the possibility of developing an evaluation form so that we have some logical way we're going about doing the assessment. And we felt that if this concept was agreed to, and since the evaluation comes up in January, we have a little bit of a time issue
Not much,
here.
right.
And the suggestion was that another ad hoc committee or this one, either way, either this one continues to or another ad hoc committee starts working on development of some kind of assessment form for the director.
But since Barbara has some.
No, Barbara has nothing. Give Barbara a break. You go back to work after 3 years of relaxing.
I have a number of evaluations that
That's
other libraries use for their directors.
What I was going to.
So, I mean, whoever
actually.
decides, or whoever's on this committee. of
That's
directors,
exactly the next step. and
So, I
will
mean,
say-
that I will be happy to turn over
Thank
to
you.
whomever, so,
Or these are copies.
yeah, just let me know. who
You know, that's the other question put to the board by our committee.
So we started to put together this chart yesterday. What items have to be on
Address
which
one.
month. Right, and some of them have to be addressed the same month every year, and some of them have to be addressed the same month every 2 years. And we thought that for the president, it would be easier if they had a template that they could work off, so they would know, oh, when this comes up, this has to happen. And that's when we realized how close the
Yeah. it just sort of hit us.
evaluation for the director was coming up, and then we thought, uh-oh.
Oh,
So
we
better
could
get
do
our
like,
act
we could do
together
like the government.
and say, yeah, do it in July and make it retroactive.
We'll get what's his name in here to help us out, Mr.
I have a
Bonner.
question that should be
Is
brought
there a
up now.
template that we could use from previous? Is that what you're saying?
Is there such a thing?
I don't know that there was a template used for previous evaluations of the director.
Not for just that, for everything, things that come up, like appointing new committees, like, just different.
There's a library-wide calendar. I do not know that there was ever one that was done in the same way for the board.
We
I know
never,
there's one
we
for
never
that,
were given one.
but I'm not aware of one that was.
And when we were putting it
for the
together,
board.
it just seemed like there were certain things that
Well,
just
just
came
even the
up.
facilities walkthrough to make sure that it happens.
Right.
Just-
I think we're missing something here. There's a policy committee that was
Right.
just appointed, and David is the head of it, and Paul and you are on the committee. You're the ones who should be doing this.
Well, doing the evaluation.
Yes.
I'm not sure, because the
That's
policy
policy.
is,
Policy is
I'm not sure,
different.
policies,
Yeah,
my understanding is policies are the library's policies.
Right, right.
Whereas this is a
No,
board
it's a board
policy.
policy.
not usually, it's not usually considered policy.
Okay, I take it back.
That's okay, we're allowed to disagree.
I'm
And
not
I do.
disagreeing, I'm trying to understand.
Hey, you've been here longer than I am, you tell me.
You should tell me now.
I don't wanna take over, believe me, I don't wanna take over. My brain is fried right now.
All right, is that it with the bylaws?
Well,
That's it, except
do we
for
have, do
we
we
need
have
some-
permission to move ahead and start with that, or do you want
To
to do
get
a
a
separate
quote.
committee?
To get-
No.
As far as going through Pam's forms and working up a form. that
I want
we
to
can
do the
give to board.
bylaws first.
Oh, that's,
And,
that's done, but
yeah.
that's basically,
Are you gonna have a motion to direct trustee Mogic then to contact the,
To get an hourly rate. I mean, we're not spending money, it's just, do we need a motion
you're
to,
giving her authority to do something?
all right.
To the, well,
You are
the
the
reason we
Okay.
brought that up is because it's, the evaluation comes up in the
Can't I
January
hide
meeting,
and
you know,
go under the table or something? That's where my cat would be right
If
now.
we could get
Goes under
the
the
forms
covers.
and put them together, we could give it to
He's
the whole board
smart,
next
much
month.
smarter than
Yeah, she
I am.
could put forms in the next packet.
Oh,
To look
you don't
at.
want, did you want to, what I was gonna say, did you want
Want
a
to create
committee
another
to
committee?
consolidate that? Well, Barb did say she had some experience with this, and what we were
Well, I've
talking about.
evaluated people,
Right,
I mean, you know, that's
is if you wanted
experience.
us to consolidate that form into a
It was
template of
159 years ago.
evaluation, bring it before the board next month, so that we have
That's how old I feel at the moment.
director evaluation form, so that the delay won't, there won't be a delay in evaluation this year. Because we only have 2 meetings before.
I mean, basically, it would be a breakdown of the job description and trying to make some assessment on each item of the job description. It's just getting it down on paper and making it in a format that's workable. I would think, unless.
Job description long.
I know it's
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, we went through it.
Well, I know, but, you know, there are ways to combine
No, I know.
things too. Having been a director, you should see the job description I wrote on myself, it was 4 pages long, and I made sure it was 4 pages long.
Barbara, read that magazine.
I'm gonna read it.
It will answer a lot of your questions.
One of my questions, I have many questions.
So do I have a motion to allow trustee Novick to contact a library lawyer to consult on the fees to finish out the bylaws?
I'd like to make a motion to direct trustee Novick to obtain quotes for a library attorney.
Second.
Show of, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Any against? Okay. Pam, as far as getting forms out, could you,
I'll be happy to send them to whomever, I just need to know who that is. Like I said, I have a whole folder with evaluation forms that I started compiling last year. You know, with the assumption that there would be a more formalized review process for me this year than last. So, like I said, I just need to know who to give those to. I'll send them to both
Barb
trustee Peters and trustee Novick.
Then you're
Well, then you might as
saying-
well send it to Carlotta too,
Yeah.
because she's the board. Yeah.
And you're saying, by saying that we should continue after we finish with the bylaws, or?
bylaws first?
Well, the bylaws are
almost
done.
done.
Okay.
Actually,
We just wanna
the
review.
only thing that's gonna hold it up is that we have to wait a month for us to meet again. It's,
Yeah.
And the lawyer.
that's what I mean, for us to meet again and then.
I've been typing them up off of our notes, and I just haven't had time between yesterday, it's 5 o'clock when we broke up, till today at this time, which I've pretty much been at work for all 24 of those hours. So, it's enough already. No, it'll take us.
We would have had it next month, except it has to be delayed 1 more month because of this.
And the bylaws have to be presented in finished format to the board 10 days before we
Yes.
consider voting.
Exactly,
They will be,
yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Because if you say go ahead next
Unless the
month, then
lawyer
we'll
doesn't,
get a
if
hold
the
of
lawyer
them
doesn't
right
change anything significant, if it's a word or two,
then.
we'll just make those changes
And route them back
and
through
route it
Pam.
back to Pam
Right.
to distribute.
yeah.
Right,
But that won't happen until after we have permission to hire the lawyer next meeting.
All right,
Did I do okay, Doc?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Doc.
okay. Unfinished business, the per capita grant application update.
I just wanted to let the board know that the per capita grant application has been completed and filed with the state several days early. There was a copy of the application in your packets, just for your information.
Very good.
Thank you.
I did have a question about this, wasn't, this year's was going to be purchasing a self-checkout?
The way that because the state is on a different fiscal year
I
than
know,
we are,
right.
the way that
Well, yeah, I
they
know that.
encumber it, we had gotten permission, we had gotten approval from the state for the self-checkout for their fiscal year 2013, but that doesn't have to be expended until August 15th of next year. And just the way that the budgeting worked out, we plan to expend those funds once our 2014 fiscal year started.
Oh,
So,
okay, but
it
we have not spent any of our 2000, the
The
one that we got this year that covered the year
We
before.
have spent some of that on stuff for the youth services department, some early literacy stuff, but we haven't
We're still
expended
planning
it
on
all.
the self-checkout?
Exactly,
Okay,
yes, it's just planned to come out of our 2014 budget.
okay, thank you.
This is very similar to taxes, in other words, everything runs a year behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Well, that's
it's always a, I have to plan it out very carefully, because it's like, and you have, they're on a different fiscal year than we're on, and then you also
And you have to
have to expend
Spend
it,
it by
and
a
then
certain date.
encumber it and expend it, and so kind of keeping track of where all that comes out of. But, yeah. The funds have to be encumbered or obligated by June 30th, 2014.
Yeah.
They have to be expended by August 15th, 2014.
All right, new business, 2014 budget.
I did include in all the trustee packets the first, and I'm hopeful that maybe we can actually get through this evening. But, if we need to schedule another meeting, we certainly can. Budget for next year. As you may have noticed, and I did point out in the board preparation packet, that we were able to tweak the budget, if you will, enough to not have to ask for any more money from the village, or to ask the village to appropriate any more money than we have the past 2 years.
So for the new trustees, line 3100, the very top, is going to show you what the levy requested for was 2012, 2013, and 2014.
Which is damn.
We're staying
Which is
flat
very
for
nice.
3 years.
Yay.
Very good.
I did have a couple of questions.
Sure, and
Is there a reason that we didn't have a special meeting like we always have to do this?
This is the first meeting, in.
This
This
is
is the
the
first
first.
read of the budget. So this is not a special meeting, but it's just a meeting.
According to the bylaws.
Yeah.
This is, I've been reading them, this is the bylaws that exist right now, the finance committee is supposed to be part of the original draft of the.
So we're meeting as a committee of
But-
Never have.
But we've never been,
I'm just
well,
reading
that's
you
what
the
the
bylaws
bylaws
the way
say.
they read. I'm
Yeah,
not pretending to know any
Yeah.
more than what the bylaws say.
nobody had any, what I'm saying is,
I mean, this
nobody
was
from
not a
finance
change.
had any input into this, that's for sure.
It wasn't a change, it was actually in the bylaws.
Right.
Just quite of information, let's leave it at that and
Yeah.
look into the future.
And this would certainly be the opportunity for any board member to provide input or ask
Yeah,
questions,
yeah, I
that
mean,
kind of thing.
it's
I
such
mean,
a big
it's never-
item that it doesn't hurt to have a few more people sweating over it. It's,
To me, it looks like a very good job.
I
Yeah.
think it's excellent.
Oh, yeah.
I had some questions because I never leave things alone, but
Do you want to ask your questions, or would you like to go over the budget line by line to start? Or do you want to start with the questions that the board may have?
it's up to you. Go line by line.
You want to go line by line,
I think we can do
click through it?
And
Okay.
this looks good.
Okay, as trustee Albers pointed out, the first line, 3,100, that is the amount of money that we can expect to get from property tax receipts, and that is the money that we ask the village to levy for us. And that actually gets sent to the village mid-November. They've been flexible with us in the past. The 3110, the replacement tax receipts, these are personal replacement tax receipts. This is a number that's determined by the Illinois Department of Revenue that the village gives us. And this makes up, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say this because it matches, unless anybody has a question. I just do section by section and just ask a question.
I mean, you get the fines, lost materials.
Right, this is all revenue. The only thing I did want to point out in the revenue portion that might, some people might have questions on, is the interest income. Previous years, it was relatively high. compared to what we're receiving last year and what I have budgeted for next year. The reason for that is the drop in interest rates for Illinois funds. At one point, there was discussion of having the interest that we earn on our PMA account in here, but that's not actually a revenue account. That interest gets rolled over, so I did not include that in the revenues for next year. If the board would like to include those as revenues, we would have to arrange with PMA to transfer that interest into our Illinois funds account. But my
No,
sense
I
of
don't
the board
see
is
it.
fine.
Yeah.
So that's why that has dropped off as much as it has. The next big section is personnel. As is the case in many sorts of organizations, that is where the majority of our funds are spent. There's some changes that we made in terms of what's considered, we've used this designation for professional and support staff, which isn't really a very clear designation, so I'm trying to move us away towards using exempt and non-exempt
Non-exempt.
employees. So I have made some, reclassifying of employees depending on where they fall in that. The numbers that I have included in the budget do reflect giving employees a pool, again, as we did last year, of a 2% raise. The IMRF line 4050 or budget 4050, I had budgeted for an IMRF rate of 10.26. That is set by the state. I don't have any control over that. However, we did contact the village who actually administers our IMRF. We just send them money. The projection is that the IMRF is supposed to go down next year. I personally find that a little hard to believe. And Stacy at the village was a little surprised by that as well. So I would ask that to keep our projected costs at what they are right now in case those projections of 9.73 from the state don't turn out to be correct. So Stacy says oftentimes the projections are right on, but I think there's been enough economic turmoil lately that one never knows how that may or may not change with the state. So
I do have a question about the salary lines reflecting the 2% increase. If you take the projected salary from 2013 and add 2% to that, it does not come out
Right.
to that number.
that's because we had anticipated making some salary or some personnel reclassifications in 2013 that were not done in our income statement or in our payroll. So those numbers aren't really comparing apples to apples.
But then, shouldn't the other one go down? Shouldn't that be an aggregate of 2% if you add up all three categories? What I'm saying is if you add up all three categories, you get
I see what
more
you're
than
saying.
2%.
The projected amount is what we project to actually spend. The budgeted amount is if we're fully staffed at all times. The projected amount reflects, people being out on sick leave, positions being vacant for a while, all of those kinds of things. So those numbers are never going to add up exactly. Our budgeted amounts are if we're fully staffed all the time, all year.
What number did that work off of then? How did that 894?
That worked off
arrive at?
of looking at each employee and what they earned and adding them up, and then multiplying that by 0.02%. And so that number before the 2% was that total for, say, if we want to look at professional, that total for the year was 876,202.60, and then 2%.
Okay, I see that number. Why does that number differ from the projected number?
Because the projected number is what we've actually spent, or what we expect to actually spend this year. And that includes having employees that for 2014, I'm moving into a different classification. And we have positions that were not paid because they were empty. So we weren't expending any money.
Okay.
That-
So your actual projected that you worked off of is what number?
The projected is I work off of what we've actually spent so far this year.
Oh, for
Actually,
reclassified people.
for everyone. Maybe I'm not understanding your question.
Okay, what I'm saying is, what number are you using to end up with this 2% here, because if I add the professional salaries, the support salaries, and the custodial salaries, that is everybody, whether they're classified or not,
Correct.
reclassified. So if you add those three numbers and then times that by 2%, it doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't
If
come
you
out
look
to
at the
that number.
projected numbers are just what we project to spend out of that budget, those budget lines for this year. There's gonna be instances where those were not, we didn't spend all the money projected, or, excuse me, spend all the money budgeted because of, you know, staff absences in part-time, in the case of part-time people, of positions not being filled in the case of full-time people. We're not paying out anything during that time.
And didn't
So
you
those-
reassign someone, like Helga's person, that,
Right, so there's
isn't that
been.
one-to-one?
Right, so you're never gonna, right now, those two numbers are not comparing apples to apples. The projected is what we think our actual costs are gonna be, as close to our actual costs as we can be, reflecting all of the weird things that happen throughout the year in terms of staffing. The budgeted number is, in a perfect world, if we were fully staffed, every day, everyone was here, no one took sick, none of our part-time
Right.
people went on medical leave or anything like that, that's what I expect to spend.
Okay. So then the three numbers that you worked off of to get the 2%.
To get for my 2014 budget.
Yeah,
So for a professional, that would be 876,202.60.
okay,
That would be before a 2%.
okay.
For support staff, it would be 492,103.82. And then for custodial was 156,822.9.
Thank you.
And that would be pre-2%.
Right.
Health insurance, those costs went up, as I'm sure is no surprise to any of you. We're actually, the library is actually going to be paying a little bit less per individual next year because of some changes in our plan, mostly for accounting purposes. But there is an increase in the number of eligible employees, and really for budgeting purposes, you should budget for covering every eligible employee. I think in previous years, we've budgeted for just the number of employees who currently have health insurance, which doesn't, and then we're left scrambling if someone's employment changes, like say, for example, a spouse gets laid off, something like that, and they want to join the plan. So the amount budgeted here is for is coverage for every eligible employee. There's also there's a number of fees associated with the Affordable Care Act that the library is keeping abreast of. And the biggest one for us next year is called I had to look this up. Transitional Reinsurance Program Assessment Fee. And this is a per belly button insured. Belly buttons is a term that's an official insurance term, I have been told, that will come out to, it's approximately, they figured for 2014, $63 a person. So this will have to be figured into all healthcare costs moving forward.
Why?
We are staying with WIN, is that correct?
Correct.
And yet, we are being forced to pay $63 per employee.
That doesn't matter who you're with, that's from the federal government.
As I'm saying, the federal government is assessing each of our employees a $63 tax, that would be per John
Mm-hmm.
Roberts,
Mhm.
even though we're not involved in.
That's part of the
Obamacare.
Affordable Care Act. Everyone's covered by the Affordable Care
To
Act.
be quite affordable, we're covering them already with WIN.
This is one of the fees associated with the act, we are
Call
required by law.
Washington.
I was gonna say,
There's none.
we have no
I'm
choice.
I'm
Yeah.
And we
clarifying
don't
it
have,
so
because
that
I know we
where
have
we're at.
less than 50 people that we have
Well,
less than 50 full-time employees.
yes,
So
but
why
there's,
are we
That's
being
right.
hit with this?
Yeah.
I've been told by people that know more about insurance than I that this is a fee that we have to pay. But it's my understanding that anyone that gets insurance from anyone, and this is it's one of the tenets of the Affordable Care Act.
I think I've heard, what Kathy had heard, that it doesn't kick in till after you have 50 employees.
They also do it by total numbers of hours of employees that actively work. So if you work 20 hours, 20 hours, 20 hours, it's 60 hours. You now have one full-time employee, and 20 hours. You now have 20 hours, 20 hours, 20 hours. It's 60 hours. So if you work 20 hours, 20 hours, 20 hours, it's 60 hours. You now have one full-time employee, and 20 hours, 20 hours, 20 hours, it's 60 hours. So if you work 20 hours, 20 hours, 20 hours, 20 hours, it's 60 hours. You now have one full-time employee, and and a part-time employee. So now when you add another bunch of 20-hour people, you're gonna work yourself up into 2 or 3 full-time slots.
There's a
which you have
whole,
to
there's a
pay.
Every
whole,
two works out to one.
Yeah,
and there's a whole tracking module that they're having employers do to make sure that you're not purposely moving people below the 30 hours a week. And there are some fees that aren't assessed depending on, you know, your
They got you
employee
coming and
situation.
going.
So this is a fee that it's my understanding we will have to pay.
Last year, we talked about the possibility of, well, we talked about finding out what the other neighboring libraries assess as a co-pay from their various employees. Have we made any headway in looking at that? Because now our guys don't pay, the only time our employees pay anything is if they add on a spouse, and it's pretty expensive.
They do
but-
pay, they pay $10
Right.
monthly, so it's minimal. I do have some information about neighboring libraries, it really is all over the board. There are some neighboring libraries that pay all of it, you know, entirely for the employee. And we are not out of the norm as much as I anticipated us being, whereas most libraries will pay the majority of the employee coverage. And, excuse me, and have the employee pay, you know, all or a good portion of the coverage for dependents or a spouse.
If we want to hold our employees, we better take care of them.
We have, I mean, I have considered raising the amount, you know, that we ask the employees to contribute.
It doesn't pay.
I'm not, I mean,
Have we
we
got?
we certainly can. I think that particularly with this budget, if we're able to afford to continue to do this for our employees, I think it's a very nice benefit. Particularly given that our pay for our employees is a little bit less than some of the surrounding areas. So this is a one way that we can kind of balance that sometimes. And it is a nice perk, and it does keep valuable and quality employees, you know, when they're comparing job opportunities and those kinds of things.
Question, supposedly businesses, I think larger businesses have gotten a waiver and will not kick in until 2015.
It's for everyone, so.
Well, does that include
There's some
us?
things that won't kick into 2015, there's some things that we have to start doing now. So, and I'm,
If you can get on the website.
I've tried to get on the website a few times, I have had no problems, but,
Are you trying to understand the Affordable Care Act?
yeah, I mean, I really am not the person to ask about that, Trustee Burke.
Undecipherable at this time.
Yes, but
Who do we have that's guiding our
well,
library?
we had to
and
pass the
keeping
law
in
so we knew what was in it.
compliance?
It's me, and I'm
We're-
working,
we're trying to
Lynn has been very,
understand
very good, and
little at a time.
Limerick as well has been very good
It's
in
gonna be
keeping us
changed
abreast of all of
somewhat
the changes
Okay.
and stuff, but in
So
terms
is
of,
Limerick
No
taking
necessity.
yes, they have been very, very
By necessity,
proactive
it
in
will
letting
be.
us know what we need to do to remain in
But
compliance.
as it is
Good.
now,
And so
right now, it's
we've
very
been,
murky.
you know,
Well,
working
it's
very hard to make
4,000
sure that we are
pages.
keeping abreast of that and, you know,
Yeah.
notifying employees the correct time, you know, making sure that we're budgeting for it, those kinds of things. This is probably one of the most confusing things I've had to deal with, is trying to balance all the healthcare.
Why you say it.
So,
I can't imagine.
but Wayne and Limerick are doing an outstanding job of being very proactive, keeping us on track with that and making sure that we remain in compliance, at a cost, in such a way as to maintain our coverage and, you know, fairly reasonable cost as much as we can.
Okay.
Do you suspect that Wynn will have to raise their fees for the same insurance?
Well, they haven't now, and in fact, as I said, there's some changes in that way the healthcare coverage will be, the accounting in the healthcare coverage, so that we don't get hit with the Cadillac tax in a few years. The library itself has some choices in terms of the coverage that we offer our employees. The library has chosen to go with an extremely generous policy for the employees, and it's the highest end Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO plan that's out there. So there are other levels of plan coverage that we can choose to offer our employees that will afford us some cost savings. That is something I have considered as I looked at the budget, and, you know, one of the things is in the back of my mind when I began preparation, thinking that, you know, we may have to start to make some of those choices. My general feeling right now is that if we can continue to provide this level of coverage for our employees, it's a very nice benefit, and are able to do so in such a manner that we're not increasing
We
the
haven't
cost
raised
to the
the taxes,
taxpayers.
right.
Exactly. That, if we don't have to make those decisions yet, and given that the healthcare landscape in this country is so unsure right now, I would recommend to the board to stay with what we have as long as we can afford it until we have a better idea of what's gonna be out there and we may be forced to make some other decisions.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a wise decision.
We like our employees.
We do like our
We'd like to
employees.
try to keep them.
Yes, we would
around.
absolutely like to try and keep
Employees
them.
who want-
Except for the one in here.
We like him too.
Forget him.
So yes, so I mean,
He's retiring.
these,
Me
don't
too.
retire yet.
I'm trying.
So the healthcare, as I said, even though it went up, it does reflect, as I said, my closest estimation to what I think the library will be responsible for, again, assuming we're fully staffed and all of the benefit eligible positions and that sort of thing. As of right now, I believe this number also reflects every fee that we may be responsible in 2014 as well. Moving on to materials and services. This is mainly books and programs. Some big changes, big numbers, or numbers that may jump out at you that have changed dramatically, either up or down. The adult book budget, there was a considerable amount added to that budget that reflects both an increase for ebooks for both adult and youth services. So that ebook budget, purchase of ebooks for all of the departments comes out of that one budget, so that's a little bit lopsided. Also, the My Media Mall platform fee, which is $4,600, something like that, I believe, comes out of that as well. So, given that we have seen a huge increase in the demand for ebooks and continue to see that demand go up, and given that we have limited shelf space, it is an area that we see that we want to continue to fund. So I put extra money in that. The youth book budget has remained the same. Periodicals went down slightly. We are planning on canceling Zinio. I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to try to use Zinio. It's an online kind of magazine resource, not a database. It's actually looking at the issues of the magazines. Sounded great. Thought we would give it a try. It's gotten very, very little patron use, and the cost is going up prohibitively for us. So we'll be dropping that. And we've actually we're going to be switching vendors for the supply of our print magazines. We've been going through EBSCO. They kind of coordinate all of our print subscriptions, but we're trying a new vendor that is giving us, I believe it's a 12% discount. So there's some savings there.
Is somebody going through the titles for the magazines and seeing if it's still something we have? Because there's been such a huge change in that
Yes.
platform.
Yeah, we look at that constantly and ongoing. And you know, we're always looking at titles that are just not getting used, and so dropping those subscriptions, titles that are just not being printed any longer, and so they're dormant, and so we end up dropping those subscriptions, that kind of thing. So we're constantly looking at those. Because you're right, I mean, that is changing so dramatically. A slight increase in the audiovisual for the adult budget. It includes an increase for DVD and Blu-rays, which remain popular, and I see I misspelled Blu-ray on your sheet, I apologize.
What is Hoopla?
Hoopla is a streaming video, music, and audiobook resource from Midwest Tape. We get a lot of our DVDs and audiobooks and CDs from already. It is kind of we're going to give it a try to see. It's pretty much, there's a fee associated with it up front, but it goes towards purchase of all the material. That upfront fee goes all towards purchase of materials, and if we decide that it's not working for us, they will refund our money completely.
So is Hoopla a way that does it take the place of Netflix for a consumer? You mean?
It
people
can, but it
drop
doesn't,
their
it
Netflix
doesn't,
and go to
it
Google?
has a lot more, I mean, in terms of DVDs, it has a lot more, kind of educational resources, that kind of thing, but it has a lot of music in it as well.
How does a patron access?
They would access it through, there would be a website, they would log on and they would type in their card number, and they'd be able to access material that way.
Or would it have educational?
Absolutely, yes, yes. We have not signed the contract, we haven't done anything with it yet, but this, we wanted to include in the budget because it's something that we feel our patrons would benefit from, and it seems pretty much a, kind of a win-win situation for us to give it a try. A number of libraries in the area are starting out with it as well.
Is it a year-to-year contract?
Yes, it would be. Well, it's a dollar amount, so they give us a dollar amount based on our population size, and then when that money runs out, then we would just put more money. It's kind of like a, like an account sort of thing. So, but it basically,
So what's
you're
the
kind of
base?
planning.
What's the base?
I believe for our population was 6,000, I believe. But again, that money goes completely towards the download of any of the materials that are on Hoopla. There's no setup fee, there's none of that. If at any point we decide that this is not working for us, our patrons aren't using it, our money gets refunded minus anything that we've used.
Or if we went through it in 2 months?
We could
Is
add
there a
more.
stop on it?
Yes, yeah, it will only go up to a certain amount, and there's limits that we can set, like we can say, we can limit it by card number, those kinds of things. So there's a whole slew of ways that you can limit it so that one person isn't downloading $5,000 worth of stuff.
And can we make it exclusive to cardholders of more
It is,
public libraries?
that's contractual. So, yeah, anything like this, they want each library to buy their own. So that's always built into the contract, is that it's only available to your own cardholders. So again, so there's a slight increase there. The digitization, that dropped back down to what we've normally put in there. This might be a possibility for us. The ongoing digitization that we do will continue. It's just the back issues that we're going to hold off on there. Do you have questions? Programs. Youth programs dropped just by a little bit, $500. Adult programming went up a bit, but if you will notice that all special programs, low vision fare, teen programming and reference programming, some of those I changed last year, but a couple I changed this year, are now falling under the auspices of adult programming. That made a lot more sense for us in the way that we handle the programming and kind of rolls those things all into one.
Is reference programming the tech classes, or is
Reference programming, those funds we eliminated that last year, but that had been typically used for the purchase of like book discussion books, that kind of thing. So it got a little bit difficult to manage in terms of from a funding standpoint, and so we're just rolling all of those into one, because really they all do fall under the auspices of adult programming. The computer and automation systems, there's a jump there, and there's 2 big reasons why we're budgeting for that amount this year. In addition to our regular and ongoing automation costs, this reflects a movement to what's called SaaS, which means software as a service. This is something that our catalog vendor is recommending. There's a number of libraries in the area that are moving to this, and it affords us a number of benefits that we don't have. Right now, we currently house our servers here, and so someone has to manage that hardware. We have to purchase it. We have to troubleshoot it when things go wrong. Software as a service is similar to the cloud, if you will. So all of that functionality is moved from servers that we have here to Cersei Dynix's server facility. Excuse me, they have, which is, their primary facility is in Georgia, and they have a backup site in Utah. So we would no longer have to purchase the hardware, we wouldn't have to troubleshoot it. There's a number of libraries, as I said, both big and small, that are using this.
This is a 50% jump in that budget.
Well, it's not just for that, there's some other things. I mean, self-check is out of this then. The other thing that we're looking at getting to afford us some more functionality on our catalog is an interface called Enterprise, which allows us to use something called eResource Central, which will allow us to have our patrons access all of our e-resources, ebooks included through our catalog and download and everything. They wouldn't have to go out to the MyMedia Mall website or anything like that. So it's a whole package deal that includes this as well as some of that other software functionality for the catalog
When
that
would
we're
this be
looking at.
implemented?
It would depend on the contract.
Well, which part? All of it?
Not having to go through my media mall.
It's hard to say a timetable.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe
it's
I-
whenever,
It would depend
it
on,
works into our
when we signed
schedule.
the contract, when we were, when we got Enterprise, which is the first piece of it, which is their kind of faceted search, and it's a requirement in order to get what they call their e-resource central. These things are all interconnected in a way. Certainly, if the board approves the budget, this is something that, we would want to start up with as soon as we can in 2014 to get that up and rolling, and there'd be some rollout time and that sort of thing. But our hope would be to have it, as soon as we could, sometime in 2014.
Would this go down next year by $20,000 or whatever the cost is of the checkout server? If that's in that line item?
Yes, because there is some setup costs, so it wouldn't be quite as high as this year. But presumably we could, without knowing what other types of automation issues we may run into next year that would, require us to keep that budget line that high or, close to that. Yes, there should be, all other things remaining the same, there should be some decrease in that.
Because
in
you
subsequent
said your
years.
self-checkout was,
Exactly,
rolled in there
self-check
too.
would be included in that. The purchase of, there's some setup and migration costs that are gonna be associated with this that we wouldn't see the following year. So there would be some decrease in costs of the subsequent years. The other nice
so
thing,
then
go ahead.
is there a, then a decrease in the number of employee hours that would be used? Because basically you're outsourcing some of the things that are now being done in-house.
There's some, the employee that's in charge of this also does a lot of other things, so I mean, there's not an immediate one-to-one comparison. I think what this does is it positions us well for the future in that, if and when those positions do open up for whatever reason, we are no longer having to hire someone who has both hardware and software and library knowledge and those kinds of things. So I think that it best, like I said, it does position us well further down the line. But there are going to be some costs that we earn back in that, employees that were involved in this can now work on other projects and that sort of thing. That we're not going to have them doing hardware troubleshooting, which when everything is running smoothly, you take up very, very little of their time. It's, just when things go wrong, then you have to have those people.
Didn't we
on staff.
just buy all those new servers just a couple of years ago?
Yeah, well, we have to, servers are on a 3-year
And that's
replacement
about
cycle.
how long they last.
Yeah. So, that's another thing that we would not have to worry about the hardware then. For example, when we first started looking at the budget, one of the things we were looking at was a $7,000 new server. Going with this immediately means we don't have to spend $7,000 on that. Now, there's not a one-to-one balance right now, but as we look long-term, that's just less and less hardware on that server level that we have to worry about buying and maintaining and servicing. Databases, adult databases went down by quite a bit. We did some real hard looks at usage of our databases, and we eliminated a number that were not being used sufficiently to warrant their cost. There is an increase. Go ahead.
Question, because you're projecting an 82,000 this year, is that because it's a prepaid?
Yes,
contract?
those are contractual. Mhm.
That's what I assumed.
Youth services databases went up. This increase came exclusively from an increased cost for BrainFuse, which is a homework help and tutoring database, which is one of our most heavily used databases. And quite frankly, if we had to, that would be the last thing we would ever give up. It's so popular with our patrons. So.
My kids wouldn't like that.
Yeah. It's extraordinarily popular. Staff support databases, again, elimination of databases for the staff that were no longer necessary. Online services stay pretty much the same. Website maintenance and improvement. That amount includes monthly maintenance for the website and the upgrade of our Fiction L software, which is a listserv that we run for staff to, something that Northborough is known for throughout the library world. So we'd like to be able to upgrade that. That's running on, how old is that software, Kevin?
Well, we've been using it as long as we've been running Fiction L, which is like 15 years, and they stopped selling it and supporting it probably close to 10 years ago.
So that budget line includes an upgrade in that software as well. Operations includes kind of running the building, the physical plant, if you will. The projected actually went over the projected for 2013. Let me see, I have two headings there, I apologize. Went over our 2013 budget because of the furnaces. So we were able to bump that down again for next year. Assuming again an aging facility, so building maintenance costs will go up.
Anything specific you have for those? It's 10,000 over last year. Is there
Not
anything you have in mind?
specifically for that. Later in the budget, the way that the numbers are looking right now, there will be some surplus at the end of the year that I will be asking the board, if there is indeed surplus at the end of the year, to move that back into the special reserve fund to use towards roof replacement if necessary, those kinds of things. But this I'm thinking mostly just in terms of general maintenance and upkeep. Trying to put enough in there that if we do have little issues that come up that are outside of our regular maintenance, that will stay within our budget. Equipment and machinery, these are some of our contractual maintenance things, is the official term, that we have here at the library: sprinkler system, alarms, HVAC, regular contractual things. Equipment, machinery, and purchase, as was eliminated actually last year, but I kept it in just for comparison purposes, and so that if you were looking at last year's budget compared to the under. That was actually included in the budget a few years ago when the village started doing services for us. We had to purchase some lawn care equipment, no mowers, that kind of thing. Furniture I bumped up quite a bit, so that what I had asked the state permission to spend our per capita grant money on was upgrading some of the furniture and furniture pieces in the adult and teen area. So I had to include that in the budget so that we know which line that's
When
coming
it comes
out.
in this year.
Right.
That'll be covered much by
The
the.
grant.
It's covered by the revenue portion of the per capita grant, but I have to budget for it in the expenditure.
Yeah, so you have an idea of
Right.
how you're gonna pay for it.
Exactly, yep.
Although we do have 2 years of stuff in the budget. We have 2 years of capital grant budgeted in this budget. Because you have the checkout thing and you've got.
Right, and we can do that, because the state, as long as I'm expending things within the amount that in the timeframe that the state gives me, because our budget year is different than theirs, we can do that. And sometimes, and libraries frequently will have that, where you're working on 2 different per capita grant years within the same budget year for your organization. Because sometimes you can use your per capita for things that you know you're going to be spending, so you're encumbering it, and it frequently happens when your budget year is dramatically different than the per capita grant year. Utilities have been lower than we've budgeted for the past several years.
As long as we don't put that into next year.
Correct, correct. Right, so it wouldn't be 35,000 for next year unless we decide we want it to be 35,000, but we
But
wouldn't
it
plan
can be out
on.
of the capital.
Right, we
capital
wouldn't be
grant.
saying, oh, our per capita grant is for that, correct. Yeah, we can put whatever numbers we want in the budget for next year, but yeah, we couldn't say this is, when I did the per capita grant report, I couldn't say we use this fund, these funds for that. Yeah. So utilities, I'm hopeful that next year will stay true to form and will come down, we'll be around what I
A
budgeted.
lot is around the weather too.
Right. But as I said, it's come under the 11.5 that was budgeted for the past several years, so I'm hopeful that that trend continues. And, I didn't bump it down too terribly much, so I think we'll be good. Insurance, fairly standard. We switched insurance companies, so we are gonna see some savings from that. Library supplies, cost of doing business, sorts of things.
Are we getting any savings from taking the monument off of the coverage?
Not at this point, so,
And have we figured out how much that land we own?
not yet. So I've been working on this, I mean, it's on my list of my ever-increasing list. I don't know if we talked about this at the last board meeting or not, the questions about who actually owns the Doughboy Monument. And it's been a very interesting month or so as we found out the history of that. And the reference librarians have gotten a big kick, and they keep running up with little bits of paper and books saying, okay, here's this history of it, so I now know everything I need to know about.
Yeah, we don't, the library doesn't.
The library does not own that.
The Legion owns it, but it's administrated through, no, it's administered through the Historical Society, but it's owned by the Legion. The repairs of it are administered through the Historical Society. There's a monument committee in Morton Grove.
And there's not any real savings on that, because it was my misunderstanding that it was on our appraisal, but it's not on our appraisal, it's on our fixed asset list, which is just simply something put together by the accountants that, again, I don't know why it's on our fixed asset list. My guess is that they were told that it was ours from previous administration, so we just need to
But
get
that
fixed
brings
asset.
up the other question of how much of the land is actually library land and how much of it still belongs to the.
Because we
Vanilla
do
Park
actually
that it's on.
we do the landscaping of it, but we don't do any cleaning of the actual monument itself, so. Yeah, it's been interesting, so,
These big items that people said.
yeah, they do.
12 by 8 piece of land.
Yeah.
That,
Well, we don't know how much,
We don't know.
of the park
It's,
got deeded to the library and how much of it's still the park.
Big time stuff.
I never knew this was a park.
Yeah,
was
it
years
was
ago.
Vanilla Park.
Needs to be.
The budget line 8010 telephone, that did go down significantly. If you remember, the replacement of the telephone system had been included in the past couple of budgets, and we finally got around to doing that this year. So that was it was like $15,000, so that's why that will, that's cut in half.
Sometimes you traced all your landlines.
And so we just said, we stopped taking all phone calls.
I can understand that.
Postage, we've dropped down a little bit. This, by postage line, both reflects a possible 5.9% rate increase, which
Yeah.
is higher, I mean, post offices and
Well, we
dire
know
straits,
it's
we
going
all know.
up, it's going up 3 cents on forever.
Yeah, and then,
We have a permit for that.
we
Yeah,
have,
but
well,
you
we
still have
our first class mail, we still
mail.
have to pay. We
Right.
pay whatever the first class mail rate is, but we're sending fewer and fewer pieces through the US mail.
More and
Overdue
more
notices, those
via
kinds of things,
email.
everything's done through email, text messaging, those kinds of things. Printing went down, both because we are using a cheaper printer than we have in previous years for our newsletter, and I have created a new budget line that's simply for promotions and publicity. In the past, we kind of did this hodgepodge of things coming either out of printing or programming. I wanted to give us a line that was simply for promotional items, like, ad space, giveaways, those kinds of things, which make the most sense to do. So those two lines together add up.
Does that include, for new people that move in, does the library have a little thing that they put in with the welcome packet that comes with the village?
One of the things that the library is doing is we purchased ad space in the community guide that's being put together by the chamber, which is going to all current and new residents. But yes, that would include anything, any publicity that we would include in any kind of welcoming packets, those kinds of things as well. Continuing ed and meetings, I kept about what we have done the past 2 years, both to reflect PLA is in Indianapolis this year. That's only every other year. PLA is a really wonderful conference for public librarians. It's a public library association, so I would like to be able to send a couple of people to that if possible. I included ALA in Las Vegas here as a placeholder, if nothing else. Again, the numbers that I have in blue on the side, those are all approximations, of course. Continuing ed is really so important, for the staff. And the board was concerned about, the staff maybe not feeling that they were appreciated. This is a good way to show that, to indicate that you appreciate the efforts that they're
Money
putting
well
into their
spent.
jobs.
Yeah.
How could you appreciate being sent to Peoria?
Yeah.
As long as you don't leave the
It's the
conference.
same way that I
Indianapolis.
went to Cleveland. Appreciated every moment of it.
You know, the conferences are always they're always worthwhile for the librarians and any staff that can go. It's just amazing, because it's so helpful to see
Oh,
what their
gosh,
organizations
yes.
are doing and ways
It's
that we can
uplifting.
take some of what they're doing and make it work here.
It's just a big uplift.
Memberships I kept about the same. Again, you know, continuing ILA and ALA memberships for the trustees and then professional staff. Professional services, again, about the same, our typical things: payroll service, employee background checks, attorney fees, appraisal costs, money for the accounting firm. We are still in the process of switching over to our new system. I am hopeful most of that will come out of this year, but there may be some residual costs next year, depending on what kind of one-on-one
Yeah,
contact
should
we
that
have
come
to
down
have.
a little bit, because that 10,000 that was in there for accounting, got spent this year?
We can. I left it this high just because I wasn't sure how much more contact we would have to have with the accountant before.
Just in case.
Before the administrative staff felt comfortable using the new system. Because not only is it them coming out here, but, you know, calling them on the phone, there's also a charge as well. So I wanted to make sure that we were covered. We did get into an issue where we had them calling without realizing that there was some fees associated with that. So I wanted to make sure we didn't run into that again this year.
Is the audit folded into that? Oh, no, it's not.
Audit is
Special
separate
tax.
under
I see
consultant
it.
services.
Okay.
I
Or
did.
actually, it's under special taxes, isn't it?
Yes, I'm sorry. It's down under special taxes. Consultant services, I did bump up. That has included in the past Goldstein and Associates, which manage our retirement fund for those not in IMRF. And that's who the village uses. We are piggybacking off the village's plan. Management consultant, I have wanted to do since I started, and I've been frank with the board, setting up pay scales and salary ranges. This is something that we, I think is really best done by firms that can benchmark us, compare us to other libraries, you know, and more so than me just sending out emails, and as well as not only other libraries, but other private companies that have similar types of positions. You know, what does a clerk at, you know, the bank make? What, you know, that kind of thing, so we can kind of do that. So I did include money for that. Possibly also a design consultant, either for redesign of some spaces in the adult and teen area, and also maybe looking at ways that we can use the space downstairs in CSS instead of just as a big storage unit. Can we put staff there? Can we open that up and use that space for something else? And then miscellaneous mileage and ILO fees.
CSS, where the microfiche stuff is there?
Yeah, that's that downstairs, that kind of dungeon, back behind new services. Miscellaneous includes things like staff recognition, you know, memorials, cookies, those kinds of things. Mileage, and then ILL and RVP fees, reimbursement. Special taxes,
What's ILL and RDP?
ILL is interlibrary loan.
Oh.
RVP is reciprocal borrowing. This is a line budgeted in case our patrons lose or damage material we get from other libraries, either through interlibrary loan or that they've checked out. They don't go to Skokie and get the book in the sewer and they refuse to pay Skokie. There's agreements between libraries that we don't become responsible for that.
Well, we go after
Yes.
the patron.
Right, but we have to budget for that, so. Because we also have a revenue line for
Right, for
ILL.
Thanks.
Yep. And then the special taxes, the FICA is set, there's nothing I can do, that's just a straight percentage of all the salaries, audit costs, and then tort liability. And then for a transfer to the special reserve fund, this seems like a really high number, 150,000. I don't anticipate that that's what we're gonna end up with at the end of the year. Again, these projected 2013 costs are just that. They're projected based on my best estimates on what we've spent. You know, things can still happen. We still have 2.5 months.
So you're projecting that we're going to underspend this current budget by $150,000?
It would probably be closer to 100,000, I think, when everything's said and done. Pardon?
Something will come
Something will probably come up. I do anticipate that there will be some funds that have not been expended this year. And in that case, the board then votes to transfer that money into the special reserve fund.
Or lower the taxes?
They could lower the tax rate if you wanted. I feel very strongly that we should not do that. I feel very comfortable in glad that we were able to maintain a steady, without increasing the levy at all for the last 3 years. The problem that we get into if we start lowering the levy amount now is that if next year things skyrocket, we're stuck. And then we have to raise it a lot. So I feel a lot more comfortable maintaining where we're at. And then, because the thing is that's our projected, the projected savings is not projected for next year, it's projected for this year. So when you look at the 2014 budget, that's the budget we need for next year. So we've been able to, we've seen some savings this year on our budgeted amounts because of staffing changes, things not coming in at the cost we thought they might, dropping some things in the middle of the year, those kinds of things. So I'm not anticipating $150,000 savings in next year's budget. I'm anticipating that we're going to be saving, will be about $3,500 apart for 2014.
I know we didn't have that last year.
Pardon?
We didn't have that last year, I don't believe.
Have what?
Have
Special
what?
savings.
We did have some, we didn't expend all our monies, the board did not vote to move that money into, so we'll just need to remember if there's
I don't
money.
believe it was.
It probably wasn't that close, I'd have to,
This is a nice sum.
if you look
If
at the
it happens.
2012
If it
final.
If it happens.
Right,
It's a big-
right.
Anticipation.
And this is anticipated, these are based on my best estimates, guesstimates in some cases, I mean, one never knows what could happen. Next year's budget is, I think, a very strong budget and keeps us at the same levy amount, and I feel very strongly that we probably should not ask for
I think
that.
it's pretty remarkable
I
you're
think
able to go
it's
3 years
incredible.
keeping levy flat.
Yeah.
So-
I think you've done it.
Carlotta, you're quiet, what do you think? Good job?
Looks good to me, I think.
I have a question.
Okay.
Has anybody considered a satellite library?
After you suggested, I've talked to some other people about it. Certainly if that's something the board wants to consider, I think that,
Well, we have so many things that won't change here.
right,
May I have your attention, please? The library will
I happen to
close
be in
in 30
Arizona,
minutes.
and I
If you
visited
need assistance,
satellite
help with computers or
library.
a new
It
library
works
card,
fine.
please ask library staff
It's
for
very
help
minimal.
now. If you need to arrange
3 or
a
4
ride home,
personnel
so
period.
as soon as
Oh, we've
well.
got one right
The
over
library will close
Evanston.
in 30
Yeah.
minutes at 9
Evanston is
o'clock.
1 or 2
Thank you.
satellites.
well, they're not our satellites, so they're Evanston.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
I
you can use
understand.
them,
No, I
yeah.
understand.
But you mean in terms of examples of
In
satellites.
terms of example.
Yeah.
We don't have enough rooms here.
Right, no, I totally, I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
Hey Pam, would that be
I think we ought
something
to
the policy
think
group
about
would
the future budget
talk
to
about?
put
I'm
some-
trying to figure out what could be
No.
picked up and moved.
I think if any committee
Well,
was
no,
going
what
to talk
could
about
be
that,
added to us?
would be the
We're too
executive.
short.
either executive, building and ground, quite frankly, I think that something of that magnitude
Committee
really
as a
does need
whole.
to be
Yeah.
discussed as
Yeah.
a board, as a whole board.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to consider, or that the board needs to consider, if that's, as they think about options for the future, is what the village is doing as well,
Right.
especially given that they're undergoing a kind of a strategic planning process in ways that we can, there's been discussion about ways we can work together and do more collaborative partnerships.
That worked very well.
So, that's a consideration too, and who knows what's gonna happen with the property, say like where Dominic's is, that's going away, and then that kind of thing. So I think there's a number of things that are in flux.
My understanding there is they're tearing everything down there and rebuilding a new center.
Hmm?
They're
Is
gonna
that
level
what
it.
the latest
Yeah,
is?
that
What happens
that was
to
scheduled.
the sports club?
There's a
They're
couple of
gonna be
stories
out.
going
They're all
around
gonna
on
be
that.
out.
I just,
Yeah,
given that
there's more than
flux,
one possibility
No,
for that.
I was in the commercial, I was a commercial broker, and I spoke to them about 4 or 5 years ago. The owner is in Canada.
Canada, I thought, yeah.
It is a Canadian one.
Yeah, and he wants to take it all down and do something fresh.
Yeah.
As soon as the leases run out, he's gonna do it.
Well,
He's
now-
not gonna
Now
rebuild.
Dominic's is
And now
going,
Dominic's.
so,
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a point to consider, for the library, being aware and cognizant of what the village is doing and ways that
Is
we
there a
can work
reason
together.
that we want to put it in the special reserve fund? The only reason I'm bringing it up is because legally there are restrictions on the special reserve fund.
Right.
that are, it's a really restrictive fund. It can really only be used for significant capital improvements.
Right, and the board, we have a resolution, and this would be, and I did note as for building repair and renovation as permitted by resolution. There is, we are looking at possible roof replacement, which, you know, just ballpark, probably 50,000 without getting any kind of quotes or anything like that.
Right, and that's what this would be.
If we wanted to do any kind of abatement, that could cover that as well. I know we've talked about that.
Yeah, because that wasn't that much, and we can get a
For
lot of
that one
mileage for that
area,
money, yeah.
But, you know, as we start to look at other areas,
More expensive.
you know, there's a lot of abatement that would need to be done in various areas, so that money could be spent towards that. And those things would all fall under the
special
auspices
reserve.
resolution.
Okay.
Would ADA stuff fall under that too?
I don't know, you know, certainly any renovations that we
Major
did of
stuff,
that,
yeah.
we would absolutely make sure that we were
I would think whoever.
compliant.
If it's a gutty changing thing, it's special reserve.
I
If it's
think
doorknobs,
that
it's not.
there's, you know, the Baxter room, while it would be nice to be able to do some changes to that. I think that when we look, at least for the next year to 2 years, that becomes lower in priority when we look at some of the just structural issues and internal issues that we would need to address to make this building as functional as we can, since we know this is where we're gonna be for a while.
So it doesn't go off the day.
Right, no, absolutely.
Everyone comfortable with this budget?
Very good, so.
Yes.
Well done.
Can I have a motion to approve the 2014 budget as presented with the $2,967,300 levy for 2014?
Yes, you may.
Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Paul, could you call the roll, please?
Michelle. Trustee Elbers?
Yes.
Trustee Burton, very much yes. Trustee Kelly? Yes. Trustee Goldstein?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Yes.
Trustee Novick? Yes. Trustee Peters?
Yes.
Four yes. Always the expressive. Nevertheless.
Yes, nevertheless, but not having it all at one time, no special meeting, no consultation beforehand. I'm very happy with the final product of it. I'm not happy with the way the stew was made. I'm happy with the final,
Happy with
I'm
the stew.
happy with the way the stew came out.
Yes, I am too.
Tasty.
There's a.
Don't talk about food, I haven't eaten since 7 o'clock this morning. Thank you. No food talk.
All right.
Okay, so,
You 7-0, Paul?
7-0.
Thank you.
thank you. I will make sure that the appropriate form letter gets written, and I will need you to come in and sign it so I can get that sent off to the village. And we'll do
On
one less day
on time again this year.
early even,
Yes.
so I'm learning from
Incredible,
you.
incredible.
Thank you. It was, I'm very happy with it. I think, I'm very glad that we were able to do what we needed to do to serve the residents and not ask for any more money. So I'm really pleased with that, so.
Good effort, nice job.
That was a really good presentation. We're very pleased with it. Yes.
So that's all I had about budget preparation.
All right, there were no communications that I am aware of.
No.
Any public comments on non-agenda items this evening? Any? None? Oh, there is one, sure.
I don't know if this is the proper format, I just have a question. It's regarding acquisitions. I gather that you go through Baker and Taylor for the acquisitions. Do you get discounts off the list price of
Oh,
say you
yes,
buy a bulk?
yes, yeah, fairly significant discounts,
Okay.
depending on the items,
All right,
ranging
so
anywhere
they're
from.
competitive.
Oh, yes, in fact, they're more than competitive. But Yes,
Okay.
we do get significant discounts on much of our material,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Any reason for executive session tonight?
None of that I'm aware of.
None? How about a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
I don't like
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
We are adjourned, thank you.